Welcome back to another episode of the Be the CEO of Your Life in Business podcast. This week, we are talking about an issue that's probably relevant to a lot of people, and it's dealing with overwhelm and focusing on the solution rather than the problem. And of course, Amy and I always talk about, issues in real time that we're dealing with, and having to manage a lot of overwhelm has been really, really relevant for me. And I know for you too, lately, with the schedule that I have, and also with and I'm not complaining because I'm so thankful for the amount of work that we have and the clients that we have. But it does become a lot to manage when you have a business that you're running, employees that you're managing, and kids at home, and it's basically a full-time job. Managing your household. So It's a lot to manage. And I've been traveling a lot. I've been away the last 2 weekends. So what that means is that I'm not home to do the laundry. I'm not home to, straighten up the house. And so, like, for example, on Mother's Day, we rolled in at 11 p.m. on Sunday night from a baseball tournament in Delaware. We were away all weekend. And I had to head into the week with a to-do list that was 15 miles long, no laundry having been done, no food in the house. And I just felt like I was going to completely collapse on Monday morning. I was so tired. I was so overwhelmed. And so I had to really sit down and say to myself, okay, yes, you have 5 million things to do. You're busy at work, you're busy at home. But rather than focus on the chaos and the problem, you have got to find a solution to what's going on right now, which led perfectly into the phrase that Amy came up with this morning that she read in her book. So do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So I'm reading a book right now that's talking about problem solving and working in the solution as opposed to just like sitting in the problem, because so often you can sit in the problem and just
which
take
is what
on,
I was doing.
Right. But like, listen, it's human nature, right? We like have an issue that pops up. We feel like we're up against the clock. We feel like we just want to dwell in that. Like, I don't have enough time, or this has been such a chaotic weekend, or this is, the week is crazy. And we can sit there and just like fester in those emotions. And the thing is, and this is a statistic I read in the book this morning, was that an emotion only has a lifespan of 90 seconds. So if you feel an emotion and you just like let it go and just like ride out and not focus on it, besides what that one emotion is, it'll be done in a minute and a half. And then you can just like move on from it. But we don't do that. We sit there and we're like, oh, that is the problem. And you know what else is the problem? And then it keeps on like snowballing, right? Yeah. What did I tell you yesterday? I had a moment of just like spiral because I was feeling super overwhelmed with a lot of work that we have to do, a lot of like great new prospects coming in, but it's like, we have to manage it and we have to do it and we have to make sure that our team is ready to do it. So I went into this spiral. And then today, with a fresh head and a clear mind, I was like, all right, just like take one thing at a time. So what I loved is how this tied into, coincidentally, ironically, whatever the universe is sending it to me, that if you're focusing too much on the problem, then it means you're taking energy away from the solution.
I love that so much.
Right?
Yes.
It is so good because like, it's so easy to say it too, because now that I'm like through my spiral moment of last night, like it's so easy to be like, oh, I was just sitting there dwelling in that spiral mentality and I was in the problem. But for us as business owners, it's become really relevant because in managing a team, they're going to come to you with problems. Like just like our clients come to us with problems and they expect us to give them a solution. We have to do that now within our office. If there's a problem that arises, we can't be in the problem and like sit in it for too long. We have to come up with a solution. And that's the role that a business owner has to have. So while it's relevant in your personal lives, which I know Laura's talking about with, the schedule and the chaos of that, it's also important to keep it in perspective that it's applicable anywhere. Like you have to figure out a way to break that cycle from sitting in the problem and giving all your energy and focusing on it and like breathing life into it, and then switch and say, okay, now it's time for the solution.
And I think one of the reasons that this causes me so much anxiety, and it might be partially why for you too, is we came from an environment where all we did was sit in problems
Yeah.
and there was never any solution.
Yes.
And I said to Amy this week when something came up in our office, I said, I have just been thinking about all of the issues that we had previously and why we had so much stress. And we don't want to repeat those mistakes here.
Yes.
We had no control over it there, but now we do. So it's almost like there's like an added layer of pressure because I so much don't want to be that I'm trying so hard to be something different. And it's kind of like we're trying to maneuver to figure out how are we going to run this office?
Yeah.
Because it was just you and I.
Yeah.
And now we have 3 employees.
Yeah.
Actually, really 4.
Yeah.
So, it's become something that while it's obviously we're so happy about the growth and expansion, it also adds a layer of pressure because we want to do it right. Does that make sense?
Yes. And that's where we can like sit here and we can talk about it and we can figure out what's the best way to tackle it, or we can talk it through and be like, why is this happening? What's the root cause of it? Or you could spend all that time focusing on a solution, which, for the issue that popped up this week for us just inside of our office, we came up with the solution and we put it to action right away. It was that day. It was like done. There's no waiting. There's no waiting for anything else to happen. It is just, this is what we're dealing with and tackling today. This is how we're going to tackle it. And this is the expectation we have of how it's going to get resolved. And that was it.
Yeah, because what I found is in the past, we would be in a situation where like an issue would come up with somebody in the office. Nobody dealt with it.
No,
it was just talked about to death. But there was never a solution. So if you have an issue with somebody and you don't talk to them about it, they don't know about it, and it just festers and festers, there's never a solution.
right.
And so when this came up this week, I said to Amy, we're dealing with this, and she agreed, right now.
Yep.
Because we do not want to be that.
Yeah.
We are running this office differently. And it's kind of, it's that one instance is an example for me of how I need to handle issues, whether it's here or at home. So like Monday morning, I literally wanted to crawl into a ball under my desk. I was so tired, exhausted, and just annoyed that I had no weekend and just stress from everything that I have going on. So I sat down and made a list of everything that I needed to do that day. And I have to constantly remind myself, okay, you can only do one thing at a time. Right. And my mom, who of course comes up with the best lines, she's amazing.
She's gonna have a book. She'll have a daily journal
right?
of or a calendar of Mrs. Kramer isms.
I told her that she needs to write a book. So on Sunday, I was furious. I was so stressed. We were away in Delaware, and I just, in my head, I'm thinking about all the things that are piling at home. I'm looking at the stack of laundry on the floor in the hotel room that I need to do when I go home. And she was like, listen, you can't do the laundry right now. So just go enjoy yourself. And I was like, you know what? True. You are, as usual, 100% correct. I can't deal with any of that right now. I'm not home. I'm away at a hotel, 3.5 hours from home. The laundry is piled on this floor right here, but I can't do it.
Yep.
So let me focus on what I can do at the moment, which was spend time with my kids, watch Matthew play baseball, enjoy being with the other families that were there.
Yeah.
And that's what I tried to do for the rest of the day.
There's a constant theme, just to bring some levity here. Laura, Katina, and laundry are going to have a love-hate relationship until all of the kids leave the nest, I think.
Oh,
truthfully, this is where we manifest your helper for the laundry that you used to have. I'm telling you, privilege, you could call it whatever you need. It's a necessity in the Katina household.
Money I ever spent. I wish I could do it again, but Mike would kill me. So,
but it's true though. It's your mom is so right? We can sit and just dwell in these problems and just let it fester us. And I'm so good at this too. My kids destroy my house as soon as I pick up the last toy and put it away. It's just inevitable. whenever I'm in a groove or I have a day planned at work, there's going to be that one client that calls and is like, hey, can I come in for a meeting? And then it ends up to be like 3 hours later. Like it just always seems to happen. So noticing that this is a trend and a theme, one of the ways that you can tackle it is by resolving to say, okay, just take one thing at a time and just keep doing that over and over again. Because I can no longer, as a business owner and seeing how much we have to do and how much our attention is pulled from our work and from our tasks, I can't block out the entire day for my work. I can't do it unless the entire office is closed and everybody's on a federal holiday and like there's religious holidays and everybody's just away from me. I cannot guarantee that I will have uninterrupted time ever, because there's always something popping up. And that was a really, for us, we've talked about this. I think you see it and you hear it over the course of our podcast. We have had to train ourselves from being the worker bee to like the queen bee, like to the one that's actually running the colony, running the operation here. It is such a shift. And it all starts with your mindset, because if we don't accept the fact that things cannot be done the same way that they've always been, like we're going to keep spinning our wheels.
Yeah. And it's a really, really hard transition to make. When I first went out on my own, I plowed right into my own firm, still doing all the work, but with that same mindset of, okay, I'm just going to do the work.
Yeah.
And then I quickly started to learn, okay, I have 7 other hats I have to wear because now it's just me. And so it was a really hard transition. And it's still, I mean, we've been in business together. I was out on my own a year, and then so I've been out on my own for 3.5 years.
Yep.
And now we have 4 employees, and I'm still not really, I don't know if struggling is the right word, but still trying to figure out the best way to manage having to handle all of these different things, because I can no longer come into the office first thing in the morning, sit at my desk and just plow through 7 hours of billable work.
No,
like, that's just not my reality anymore.
Do you remember those days? Wow. And even so, those days were fueled by like a Laura Katina and Amy Mara chit chat for like a half hour in the morning. Then we were like, all right, tag, you're it. Like, let's go. Time to get our work done for the day. And we would emerge for like lunch.
Right.
And that was about it. It was, oh man, those times. I tell you, there's something to be said about it. But I agree with you entirely. Like, it is the biggest mindset shift to say to yourself, okay, I can no longer just be in that role. I can no longer just gossip about the problems. I can no longer just like sit around and be like, oh, somebody else will figure it out, or it's somebody else's problem. It's our problem, one, and it's also our solution. So like, we are the ones that have to create the systems, the intake procedures, the everything from soup to nuts in our business. We have to figure out what those solutions are to make it work for us. And like, a good solution too is like, hey, for the next hour, you need to take my phone calls. Nobody's on fire running through the building. Like,
Right.
You'll be fine for an hour.
Although they might think they are.
Oh, no, yeah, of course. Yeah. But like, take messages for an hour just so that you can get your like mind straight and do a brain dump like what Laura did on Monday morning. Write down everything that you have to do. And then, okay, what is the number one priority on this list? Can I get it done today? Great. Wonderful.
But one mindset shift that you have to keep in mind if you're going to do a brain dump like that is you have to know and remind yourself that you cannot do all of those things that day.
No.
Like, I think for some people, making a huge list like that might be counterproductive, because they'll look at that list and they'll say, it will just be like red lights flashing, overwhelm. I can't do this. This is too much.
And then wait, for me though, it's like, oh, I have a plan. Now I see 1,000 things I have to do. And I am so motivated by crossing things off of a list. I know that there's so much research out there that's like, oh, that is the worst thing you possibly could do. I love crossing off a to-do list.
I do the same thing.
I know.
I have my list that I made this morning in my planner, and I've been checking things off that I've gotten done this morning.
So for me, I'm like,
that might work.
25 things on this list. Great. I have 5 whole days to try and get them all done. Wonderful.
But if you do make a list like that, you have to remember that it's one thing at a time.
Yes.
And don't let the list, which is supposed to help you reach a solution, contribute to the problem.
Yeah.
Does that make
Oh,
sense?
that's so good. That's such an important point. Like it cannot dictate the overwhelm. Like that list is not to create the overwhelm. That list is to create a roadmap or a plan of action, right? Like you could look at it. And again, if you look at it from the mindset of, oh my gosh, I have so much to do, you're still contributing to the problem. You're still
Yes.
not working on the solution. Like look at that list and say, thank you so much, list, for helping organize my brain. And now we're going to start with number 1.
Yes.
Done.
Yes. And if you can do that, that's great. You just can't let it lead to more overwhelm.
Mhm.
For me, the list, I need a list. If I don't have a list, it was part of my problem on Monday. I rolled into the week totally unorganized because I
Yeah.
hadn't been home. I didn't have my list. Typically, I will sit down on Friday afternoon, look at the week ahead, figure out what's coming up, and the
Right.
things that I know that are urgent, urgent quotes,
Yep.
that have to be done on Monday, I will write them down. And of course, the list continues to grow, but
Yeah.
at least I can start the week with like that frame of mind where, okay, I have these couple things I need to do. Other things
Yeah.
are going to come up, but this is what I have to get done. I didn't have that on Monday. And I just wanted to crawl into a ball under my desk.
And what else did you do though, if you can offer just a solution for just the hectic chaos of the kids' schedules and your schedule? Because I remember you saying, I don't know if it was this week or last week, you were like, I had to go through and put down every single game, match, tournament, whatever it was, because even though it looks like so much on the calendar, it's out of your brain and then like on the calendar.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why I put it in, even like all the kids' games and stuff are in our work calendar. So everybody can see, like, if I have to leave early, this is where I'm going to be. But for me, I can look at it and see like what my week looks like. Right.
Yes.
So the kids have had games every night this week. Every single night we were on the baseball field after being away at a tournament all weekend. So, it's just been completely chaotic. But when I put it down in Outlook in the calendar, it kind of just gives me like a guide for my week. I can look at it and say, okay, this week's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And this is how I'm going to handle it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. We've talked about this before about putting things down in a schedule. Like, don't know who can actually keep it all organized in your brain. And if you can, I'd love to meet you, but I can't do it either. I like to have things blocked off on a calendar. I write it in like 3 different places at the end of the day because it helps me just stay focused. Okay. From 9:30 until 10 o'clock, my first call, I have to do X. And then after that's done, then we do this. And this is what Laura and I do every single week when we schedule to do our own meetings with each other, our podcast recordings, our meetings with admin, our meetings with our team members. We literally have to put those things in, and that's part of the solution. It is not part of the overwhelm. It's actually organizing our day, even though it can feel, if you're letting your emotions drive that, it can feel overwhelming because you have a lot going on. But it's like a budget. I always say this. It is like a budget. You are allocating the time. You are allocating where you have free blank space to get stuff done. That's part of your solution. So it really boils down to, what are you going to say to yourself or think to yourself in your mindset as to what your circumstances are for the week?
Yeah. And if you are suffering from overwhelm, like so many of us are, the world we live in today,
everything's overwhelming.
Just crazy.
Yep.
I mean, it goes nonstop 24/7. It's not like when we were growing up when, we would get home from school and that was it. Like there was no cell phone, there was no internet. Like we were just home. Like we went outside to play. There was a space to let go and just relax and
not be connected all the time.
Right. So now with the chaos of the schedules and being connected to everything, everywhere, 24 hours a day, it can be incredibly overwhelming.
Yeah.
So first of all, don't beat yourself up if you feel overwhelmed all the time, because we do.
Yep.
And we have systems in place and we still feel overwhelmed all the time. It's just, I think in the world we're living in, it's just human nature and normal to feel overwhelmed a lot because it's a lot to handle. Your brain is not meant to handle this overload.
No.
And so we have to figure out ways to handle it. So if you suffer from it like we do, and like so many people do, just start with, yes, identify the problem, but instead of, like Amy said, putting energy into the problem, put your energy into what the solution is. Make a list, figure out what you're going to do on any given day, what you can accomplish, what can wait. Just figure out what your first step is going to be to deal with the overwhelm and, launch yourself into the solution rather than sitting in the problem. So we hope these tips were helpful. We thank you for spending time with us, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.